Hi booktube, Aaron here, hope you're doing very well. Today I'm going to be doing the Girl Scout cookie tag for Tag Tuesday. I was tagged in this by Fred from Read by Fred, and this tag was originally created by Melinda from Web of Stories. And this tag is inspired by Girl Scout cookies. Fred, when he did this, he was saying that since he lives in Canada, I think there's only one variety mentioned in this tag that he's actually able to get. For me, living in the UK, I don't think I have access to any of these cookies, so I have absolutely no idea what what they're like. But it's a good tag nonetheless. And it is making me feel a bit peckish anyway, so I might go and have some biscuits after I'm done. So the first prompt is Trefoils, a classic book that you love. And if I was just to go with my natural reaction, I think it would actually be the same book that Fred mentioned in his video, which is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I mean, the writing itself is amazing. It's so much more than I was expecting it to be, and I've read it a few times. Um, and from what I can remember, it just keeps you intrigued and engaged all the way through. So yeah, it's definitely one I'd like to get back to. But it's just one of those books that for a long time just has kept on living in my head. And I've never really been bored by it. I've never really felt like it was dragging or anything like that. So just an amazing book with some great ideas, some great action, some strange characters. Just a great book. But to bring another book in, just so that I'm not copying Fred, I would say that I also really love Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I wanted to mention this one because it probably would be included in some of my, if I made a list of my all-time favorite books, this would probably rank relatively highly. And like Frankenstein, I just enjoy it every time that I read it. It's always a romp for me. There's a bit, sort of after the halfway mark where it gets a bit repetitive, but there is a sense of dread, I think, all the way through it. And it sort of it just keeps on rising as it goes on. The beginning bit with Jonathan Harker going to Dracula's castle is probably the best bit of the whole book. But I do also love um, there's a bit towards the middle, and it's hard to actually say what's so great about it. But I suppose it's the first proper vampire hunt in the book, and it's terrible and it's kind of disturbing, but it's really really gripping, and it's one of my favorite bits of the book as well. Moving on, we've already mentioned one, Shelley, so I'll mention another one next. So, Lemon Ups, a book you find inspiring, and I just go with the poetry of Percy Bysshe Shelley, particularly poems like To a Skylark, that it's quite hard to say exactly what it is, but you read the book or you read the poem, and I don't know, you just want to make the best of your life, if that makes any sense at all. There's a kind of buoyancy, you kind of lift the poem lifts you up, I suppose. And there's a lot more in Shelley's poetry than just that kind of thing. But he's one of the poets that sort of does it the best for me. Number three is S'mores, a comforting book. And I'll go with one I finished relatively recently. It's the first four books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. And definitely the first book in here, A Wizard of Earthsea, even though it's got a darkness to it and a sense of dread to it, and some one or two bits that are a little bit creepy, but not too creepy. The overall tone of the book is very, very, very comforting. And it certainly would be one of those books that if I wanted something comforting and cozy to read, it'd be one that I would gravitate to. Number four is Adventurefuls, an adventurous book. And with this, I thought I'll go with one with adventures in the title, We've got Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, which is maybe one of my favourite kinds of adventure. Just someone, I suppose any adventure involves someone being totally out of place in a environment that's unfamiliar to them. But I suppose that the way that's sort of shown here in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is it's delightful and it's strange, and again it's one I would like to revisit. I think like with Frankenstein, there's a lot in here that's sort of different to all the films that you see, and so it's kind of refreshing when you go back to the original. And this is one that I imagine I'll be reading quite soon to my daughter. Yeah, I don't know when she'll put up with it, but I suppose eventually I will be. Then number 5 is Samoas, a book that blends 2 or more genres. And with that, I'd go with more or less anything by W.G. Sebald. So I've got here Rings of Saturn. When you look at the back of the book here, where it has the genres, it says memoir, travel, and history. Even though this is also kind of described as a novel as well, I think. Um, but yeah, it's sort of straddling these three these three genres, and I suppose a lot of travel writing quite often involves history, but it's also the experience of the person on the journey. This is unlike any kind of travel writing or any kind of history or any kind of memoir really. But the reason I picked this is because it's not just because it's straddling those genres, but it's also because it's sort of part um, collage, I suppose. It's full of these black and white photographs, and most of his books are, and most of them aren't even photographs that he's taken. They're photographs that he's collected and sort of curated for the book, and sometimes the photographs come first, and he then kind of writes either a story or his experience around the photographs, which is really intriguing. And he kept on, what he'd do is he'd keep on photographing them to just get them, or photocopying them, just to get them that bit more grainy, I suppose. Which is it's just really interesting trying to work out how these illustrations or these pictures fit in with what he's writing, because sometimes the connection it isn't actually that clear. So it's there in Rings of Saturn, and this is more of a typical travel book, and so a lot of the pictures are a little more connected to what he's saying. We've got here Vertigo, which this one is sort of history. Again, this one says fiction, travel, and history. And I think with this one, sometimes it is harder to tell exactly what these sort of found photographs are. So it's part novel, part history, part travel, part collage or exhibition, part charity shop. It's just an amazing experience that I always enjoy. And then number 6 is Dozy Doze. So this can either be a book that you love that everybody else seems to hate, or a book that you hate that everybody seems to love. And I wasn't too sure with this one. I think if I read more contemporary literary fiction, it would be easier for me to, I suppose, engage with that kind of thing. I suppose people do have strong feelings about some classics, but it's always, I don't know, it's harder to for me to sort of work that kind of thing out with a classic. So I went with one where, to me, it seems like the jury's out. There are a lot of people who don't seem to like it, who think it's overrated. Quite a few people who really like it, and I would put myself in the camp of people who really like it, and that's Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And it's just an odd fantasy book. And I think that the one thing I've heard people saying is that it's just ripping off The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis, which is fair enough. But actually, for me, by the time I got to the end of the book, I could absolutely see why she is ripping off the magician's nephew, because there is a kind of meta thing going on between the two books, I think. But it's just a great atmospheric book with an unreliable narrator who is, um, very individualistic to this book. And it's not too long, so it's a nice sort of curious one. And I suppose intriguing would be the word for that one. And then number 7 is Thin Mints, and this is one of your all-time favourite books. So I was looking through my bookshelves just to see, out of books on my bookshelves, which book would sort of be one of those sort of desert island books. And I went with the collected fictions of Borges, just because I love his writing. I love the ideas that he brings up in his stories. And also I just love how, I suppose, kaleidoscopic his body of work in fiction is, and then it's even more kaleidoscopic when you think of the poetry that he wrote and his non-fiction. And so I think, yeah, his short stories would definitely be included. And actually, thinking about it, this pile of books that I've put together um, for for this tag, it would actually make a fairly decent pile to take with me to a desert island. I think they would keep me entertained for quite some time, reading and rereading them. And then finally, we've got number 8, which is Tagalongs, to tag some of your fellow booktubers. So I will tag Amy of Hearth Ridge, Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics, and Nicole from Noteworthy Fiction. And as I often say, if I haven't tagged you but you would like to do it, then please feel free to consider yourself tagged, and yeah, give it a go. So there we go. I will be hopefully back soon, but in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.